so it happens to be that this is where I keep my own. So all of those magazines have an essay of mine. And this is Claire Colebrook, who wanted for some reason a copy of my one of my really early books, The Disappearance of God, and I didn't have one, so she ordered one. And this is her dog, Shelley, sound asleep on Claire Colebrook's copy of The Disappearance of God. And she's given it a name. She says, Shelley asleep after a good read. My version of that is Shelley asleep after being bored to death. We're off. Island. That's Island Hope. I thought that the Swiss Family Robinson was not a work of fiction, but it was truth, history, really happened. And I was very disappointed because I read it as truth. This is about a family that builds a house in the woods, fancy tree house, etc. It's a wonderful book. But for slightly older people, Alice in Wonderland, though it was full of some jokes that I didn't catch, and there's great moments. It's a place to learn puns. It's a great moment where the mouse is telling his sad story, and this story is on the page as a kind of tail shaped, and the mouse sort of loses his way and says, "Where was I?" And Alice says, "I think you'd got to the fifth bend." So she'd been seeing this mouse's tail as a tail. So there I was being taught puns, which Lewis Carroll was very good at. Tail, T-A-I-L, and T-A-L-E was very funny. So it's a matter of funny. And some people wouldn't get the point. Yeah, well, it was a thing that I intended to talk about, say something about, and that is the importance for me of speech act theory and the distinction between performative and constative language. You could say, roughly speaking, that a mimetic document that imitates some real outside world is constative. It's true or false that such and such really happened. Whereas performative brings something into existence by the words. Alice in Wonderland certainly does that. It bears some relationship to Lewis Carroll's friend's daughter. There's some original for Alice, but it's only some relation, and he wrote it for her. So I wouldn't deny the relation of literature to life. I would just say that it's always very complicated, like the Alice books. The Alice books have a straightforward mimetic dimension. It's just that you can't walk through looking glasses. And rabbits in general don't talk. "Oh, my boots and whiskers," says the rabbit. "I shall be late."
Oh my gosh!
The rabbit goes running by. And we do see that Alice is a little surprised to find herself in a place where rabbits talk, but she gets used to it. It just adds another funny dimension. I also should have made more of the, to quote Paul Demand's essay, of the concept of irony. Irony seems to me absolutely fundamental in literature. But I've discovered that irony, in its various dimensions, is something that people, that's not the same thing as intelligence. I've had students who were very intelligent, but they just didn't get irony. And other students not so smart who did see an irony and take pleasure in it. So if I were teaching basic how to read course, I'd be sure to have a section, which I tried, no doubt unsuccessfully, to explain irony. Now, my dear students, I'm going to tell you about irony. Pooh Bear really likes, and so he's come partly to see whether there's really is a bear down there, and then he sees the pot of honey. He says, I think I better go down there and check and see, make sure it's really honey. And so he starts tasting the honey. He says, yes, it's honey, but maybe I better see whether it's honey all the way down. And he puts his head further and further into the honey jar and gets stuck. So he's got this honey pot over his head, and then Piglet, who's the other main character, comes and looks over the side and sees Pooh with the honey pot stuck in his head, just raising his head and making a loud roaring noise of sadness and despair. And Piglet starts running away and says, he thinks it's an elephant. He says, oh, horrible heffalump, a heffable horrelump. And I thought that was so funny. I still do.